Hey, it's time for another pandemic life video. I was gonna go out and do some work, but unfortunately, you can probably hear it's raining outside and pretty good too. So this would be a good time for me to bring in one of my favorite tools that I've been working with as of recent, the wood lathe. Now lathes are used to create spindles, bowls. What it really does is that it takes a piece and it spins it between two centers, and it helps you make round shapes. And this is used in quite a bit of work. It can be used for spindles and furniture work. And like I said, with bowls, you can pretty much spin anything on this, almost. But the one I got here is a Rikon. This is a midi lathe, and I'll explain what that is. There are three different types of lathes. You got a mini lathe, which is lathes that usually go less than 18 inches, and they're used for like smaller pieces. You got the full-size lathe, which is used to make like table legs. So, it can make pool cues. So, yeah, but those things are usually very expensive. So we have a midi lathe, which is the in-between. This particular one, it goes up to, I believe this is 22 inches long. Probably longer, but so like I said, this is middle of the road. You can make small pieces, you can make somewhat longer pieces, and if you wanted to step up to a longer length, there are extension beds that are available. I did manage to get this on sale. This was usually available for, like, I think it was either $800 or $900. I managed to knock that down to about $600 or $700. With a 15% off of Woodcraft. So what I'm going to do is that today I'm just going to go through some of the stuff on here, because there's quite a bit of stuff you'll need to know before thinking about doing any wood turning or getting your first lathe. Yeah, I personally decided to go with a midi lathe to start off with. Because like I said, full lathes are a bit too expensive, and plus I'm one that's starting out, and wood turning is something that requires some sort of training or takes some time to practice. I did practice turning a few bowls beforehand, just to make sure that I got the hang of it, and I pretty much got it. So I'm just going to go through some of the basics of this. I'll start off with the first thing is to know about the different parts of the lathe. Excuse me. So we have the headstock here. So this is used for. This is where the motor, the belts will be. Now the motor can be located almost anywhere on the lathe, either up here on the side. But this one, the motor is located underneath. And what it is, I'll see if I can open this up. Now inside there, in fact, let me take you off the tripod so you can get a better look at this. So this uses a pulley system. And inside, we have some belts. We have one belt actually, but there are three different pulleys. They, whichever position it's on, it is used to determine the speed of the spindle. Right now, it's on the second pulley, which is the medium gear. The small one you see there is for the low gear. And the big one in the back is for the high gear, the high speeds. Now, and that would come all the way up here. And that really is because that This will, if you think about a transmission in a car, how it changes gears, it pretty much works the same way with this, with the smaller gear down below. Gives it a slower speed, the bigger gear will give it a higher speed. And there is a little chart here to tell me which one's which and what speeds they go, and they are rated in RPM, or revolutions per minute. So if I wanted to change to a lower gear, what I would do is pull up on this, well, I have to loosen this up first. Then we're going to pull up on this lever. And so that will loosen this belt and we can move it, and we'll move this to the low gear, which is the small. Kind of hard to do this with one hand. There we go. So that will go to the first position, and then we have to move this one to the big gear on the left. And just have to make sure that it is entirely in its groove. So we're going to make sure of that. It looks like it is. So then we push this down. We'll close this up, tighten up, and then we're going to spin it by hand just to make sure it's good. And so yeah, if you want to manually turn the spindle, you use this. So now it is in the low gear, which means it'll spin between 250 and 750 RPM. Now up here on the headstock, you notice that there's this thing. This is where our face plates, our chucks will be. Right now I have a chuck on there, and that is used for my bowls. But right now I don't really need that at this time. So what we do, we're going to lock the spindle in place. That's where this comes in. So that means that I cannot move this. So then I will take that off with a small Allen wrench, if I can find my Allen wrench. Here it is. And so now I gotta loosen loosen that little nut there. Maybe I have to do it from the other side. So let me spin this real quick. No, that's the only one. I just had to get in better position. So, all right, lock this back in place. So once again, the Allen wrench will go in. And by the way, this does not come with the this does not come with the lathe when you first start it. Yeah, usually that Allen wrench gets in there. Yeah, I may have to do this two-handed. I'll be right back. Well, I just figured out I had used the wrong size Allen wrench, so I'm going to my toolbox and get this one out. Yeah, I usually have an Allen wrench that is sitting in there to get it out, but I think I may have misplaced it. But that is coming off, and now, like if I wanted to go to the face plate, this would go here. Of course, there would be a wood piece attached to this, and I'll show you that in a minute. Another way of doing that is with this. Now this would just grab onto the wood piece. This is more for spindle work, but I am not doing that at this time. Now, if I decided to use that, in order to get it out, I would have to use this little thing, the knockout rod, which goes in here and then just pops out on the other side. So that is if I wanted to change out that particular center. So like I said, that is where all the power comes at. And the other side here, we have the tailstock. Now the tailstock is used to hold the workpiece in place. So that's where we have that's where the two centers come into play. So this is for spindle work or for bowl blanks. This is just to hold the thing in place while I work out on the shaping. Now, just like on the headstock, you can change this out as well. Like you can put a drill bit on the end of that, and to do some boring. But perhaps we'll do that in the future. But to get it down there, we would use this. We would use this little knob there to push the center in to lock it in place. And in case you're wondering, this just locks it. I'm spinning it the wrong way. All right, and now this is where you're going to do most of your work. This is the tool rest. This is where the chisels will go. And I'll show you my chisels in just a minute. But anytime that we're doing the workpiece, the chisel has to be on this tool rest to avoid any kind of dangerous condition, because it uses the shearing force of the chisel to chip away at the workpiece, and I'll show you that in just a little bit. Now, a good feature on this lathe. Now of course you are okay with just the pulley system, but I have a variable speed, which I can change the speed at any time, progressively, slower, faster, and its speed will really be determining on which gear it is on. And it does have a forward and reverse and the on-off switch. And the speed is really important on this because if you go too slow, you're likely to get a catch. If it goes too fast, then if anything happens, then that workpiece is going to go flying across the room, which it would be very dangerous. So it's pretty much a balancing act, trying to make sure you get the correct speed. Now, from what I understand, there is a formula to determine what speed you should not go higher than. And I believe that was 9,000 divided by the diameter of the workpiece in inches. So if so for example, if I had a workpiece that was 9 inches, so 9,000 divided by 9, that means I cannot have the lathe faster than 1,000 RPM. So pretty much meaning that I can put this on the medium gear, the second gear, but I have to adjust it so that it doesn't go any higher than 1,000. But that's pretty much the whole lathe. There are some additional features. There's some different accessories, but those are for another topic. So with that, that's pretty much the parts of the lathe. But I also need to go through the chisels. Now, there's actually two different types of chisel. The one I have is more beginner friendly since I'm just starting out on this, and those are carbide tipped chisels. Now these are actually called cutters. So the one I got was also on sale, and it comes with 3 different cutters. Now the type of cutter I got is a Rikon as well. But this one has an interchangeable heads. So if I wanted to change, I have to twist, pull this off, and then lock this in, twist again, and I'm ready with a new one. Now, as I said, carbide cutters are more beginner friendly, and they do last quite a while, longer than a traditional chisel. So first of all, I'll show you how this works. Now what you got your carbide head on here. And like I said, you're supposed to use the top. You're normally use the top as the part where you cut with. And once this wears out, you would take a T25, twist off that screw. you rotate it 90 degrees, and then you have a fresh blade on there. And then once you've used all 4 of them, then it would be time to replace the cutter. Like I say, it's more affordable, and like I said, this is definitely helpful for those that are just starting out. Now, and I'll go over the traditional tools in just a moment, but first I have to go through each one of these. Now this particular one you have here is the square cutter, obviously because it is square. But I normally use this for roughing, which basically means taking a square blank and cutting it so it turns into a cylinder. That's pretty much what I use this for. And it's also good for making straight cuts, peel cuts, for taking large amounts of wood off. So that's mainly what I use this one for. The next one would be the round cutter. Now the round cutter is more for general work. The round cutter is used mainly for shaping the blank to whatever that you want. Now, of course, with the to get a fresh blade, all you have to do is just spin the blade around. And how you can tell where you're at on there is that there's a little dot on there. Maybe you can see that. And I started off on my left, and then once it goes all the way around, then it's time for me to change it. But yeah, this is more for general cutting and shaping. And then the last one I have is the diamond cutter. Now the diamond cutter, it is used for 2 things for me. One is for detail work. Like if I wanted to put grooves on there, I can do that because of its pointy bit there. And this can also be used as a parting tool, which is to cut off the finished workpiece from the rest of the blank for when you're done cutting. And unlike the other 2, there's only 2 positions for this cutter to go. Once one side is used up, you just have to flip it around, and then once the other side's done, then it's time for a new cutter. Now, like I said, these are, I know I said this before, they're more beginner friendly. Now, I've heard of other people swearing by the traditional tools, which there's a whole variety of them. They're pretty much high-speed steel, which is a special type of steel which helps it to try to stand up to the forces on the lathe. But there are the basic tools on the high-speed steel. We got, to my knowledge, 5 different ones. If I forget one, I'll bring it up. But you would start off with a what they call a spindle roughing gouge, or some people will just call it a roughing gouge for short. It works just like the square cutter, used to round off the blank at the start, and that's pretty much all it is meant to do. Because it is a very beefy chisel, but there is one weak spot on there, and that is where it meets the wooden handle, and you don't use that tool for anything else. And that's mainly because that if you try using it on end grain, and I'll talk about the grain a little bit later, then you're likely to get a catch, and it's likely that you'll break the tool right there, and you'll have wood flying everywhere, or worse, the chisel flying, and it can cause some serious injury. The next one would be the spindle gouge, which is kind of like the round cutter. It's used for some general work on the spindle. And like I said, this is more limited to spindle work. This would not be used for bowl work. There is a specialized one for that. The spindle gouges are used for general shaping of the workpiece. So you can make coves, it can make beads, so pretty much just more your general work. But this is used only for side grain. Now the other version of that I just mentioned is the bowl gouge. It's just like a spindle gouge, except that this one is more thick, which helps it stand to the pressures of the wood. Now the reason why this is called a bowl gouge is because it is used mainly for turning bowls, and that is because that you are often going with and against the grain, and trying to use a spindle gouge on that will likely cause it to break the tool. Now, what do I mean by the grain? Let's take this blank for example. Now, if you are, usually your workpiece would spin this way. Now, there are places where, like, you see how the grain on this goes down this way? Now, if I were, let me see if I can get I'm going to take my square cutter off and show you this. So if I were to spin it this way, and I used a square cutter, it's cutting along the grain, which causes it to peel off. And I don't know, maybe I can do this here, is that if you see how, I don't know if you saw the dust flying there, how that's able to cut through that, because it's going with the grain, because there is no grain supporting that. It's got nothing to go on the back on, so it'll just peel off. But if you're going against the grain, which would be the next one over, now you see how the grain's now going sideways? So now you're trying to go against it, and this is, you probably see that it's doesn't cut as cleanly. And this is especially going to happen when you start with the roughing process. Sometimes you'll get chunks of wood flying off just because that it's got all the fibers behind it supporting it, and it just doesn't want to go anywhere. So because of that, you're going to get more of a resistance on the end grain. So, and if you try using a spindle gouge on that, all that is going to cause it to likely cause it to break. But with a bowl gouge, it can handle that. And then when you finally get to the bowl itself, now you have, so you got the grain in this case going this way. So every quarter of a revolution, you got cutting with the grain, and then you're cutting against the grain. Cutting with, cutting against. So if that makes any sense. So with that, you need something tougher. The next tool in the traditional lineup would be the skew. Now a skew is, let me see if, where's my square cutter at? So imagine the square cutter, but except that it's been angled off. That's pretty much what a skew is. A skew can be used for different things. I mean, it can also be used for shaping, but it's also used for scraping, which is cutting the grain off the surface of the bowl, or blank, whatever you're working on. It could be used for plating, it could be used for peeling. So that's pretty much what it is, but it's one that either people love or hate. It's because often when people start using the skew, they often have a catch, which pretty much scares them, and they just swear off of it. Now, what do I mean by a catch? Now, remember when I mentioned about the end grain here? Now, this can happen in different ways, but there are several ways of getting a catch. But for example, if my tool goes in too deep, it'll cause it to stop the workpiece, and it will probably, if I wasn't holding it well enough, cause it to drag down my chisel, and that would be a really dangerous thing for it to happen. Or if you were doing spindle work, if you got a catch, it would likely cause your chisel to just go off to the side and just cause you more problems on your workpiece, as it will leave quite a mark there. But catches are scary and in some cases dangerous. That's why some training is involved in wood turning, just so that they can know what to look out for. And it still happens to professionals. Sometimes it happens, and usually it could be because of a particular workpiece. Because there are different types of wood. Like this is maple. It's a very typical wood. It's one of the domestic woods here. But if someone was working on something like leopard wood, where the grain is all over the place, that is something that takes a lot of skill and a lot of knowledge to work on, just because you don't know where that grain's going, and you could get a catch at pretty much any time. So like I said, the skew, yeah, it's either one that they love or they hate. What was another one I was going to go? Now there are some specific spindle gouges, like a detail gouge. It's just pretty much a smaller one, just like as it says, goes into more detailed work, but it's just pretty much just another spindle gouge. But the last one, like I said, if there's any I forgot, just let me know. But the last one, as I mentioned before, was a parting tool. Now that can either be used for peeling or to cut off the workpiece from the rest of the blank for when you are finished. And like I said, it's going to be kind of like the diamond cutter, but usually with parting tools, you're pointing it this way. So that's pretty much what it is used for. I've heard some stuff about parting tools being used for other things, but that's mainly what it's used for. And what you'll be learning with these tools is that you got to learn the proper technique on using these. Like the most basic thing you need to know is that you may notice that it's not entirely flat. Yeah, let me see if I can get it to focus. Now you notice that that front end is not entirely flat. There's a little relief cut on there. What you're going to be learning with the traditional tools is that you're going to be riding the bevel, is what they call it, is that you're pretty much going to rub this on the workpiece and then tilt the cutter down until it starts cutting into the workpiece. That's pretty much one of the most basic things that you're going to need to know. Was there anything else that I was going to talk about here? I think I pretty much covered the basics of this, but that's pretty much all I wanted to cover on the lathe for now. But for the next video, I will start working on this maple piece, and we'll see where this goes. But for now, I'll see you guys later.